Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Or if you're new here or just a regular viewer who hasn't subscribed yet, please go ahead and click on that big subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. So today I'm talking to you about episode 7 of season 2 Star Trek Lower Decks, entitled Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. We got a bit of everything in this episode. I quite enjoyed it. We had a bit more of a backstory about Phillips and where he's from. I think everybody kind of thought he was human, but he turns out to be some sort of prince of some really very medieval, regal kind of race. And we also got the return to Star Trek in one of our favourite actors and legends of Star Trek in the form of Jeffrey Combs, which you guys would know from, Weyoun, the Vorta, to Brunt, the Ferengi, to the Shran, the Andorian, umpteen other Star Trek roles that he has played over his career. And he's now adding to that by another one in the form of the maniacal artificial intelligence computer that wants to take over the galaxy. So great to see Jeffrey Combs return to Star Trek. So let's take a look through this week's episode and see what it had to offer. So the opening scene sees Freeman and Ransom down on a planet retrieving Agamus, the evil AI computer from this race. And he's a cunning one. He's trying to trick them all into plugging him in. He's just wants to get back to the network so he can take over the planet again. And I think it was really perfect casting Jeffrey Combs in this role. He does such a good job of playing the sort of somewhat crazy maniacal characters like Weyoun and Shran. They're all got that little kind of slightly offbeat, evil edge to them or whatever that's always quite entertaining. I love the line when Freeman gets back up to the ship after they've had a bite to eat and says, I really hate eating alien street food. It's always such a gamble. And she looks a bit sick to her stomach, having eaten probably some, dodgy thing on a skewer that was cooked up in a slightly unsanitary environment. I think we can all appreciate that. And we also get in this opening scene a first look at Phillips' mum, who is the queen of some very regal race, and we find out that Phillips is in fact a prince, and mum has been trying to get him to take the throne for some time, but he just wants to be an engineer in Starfleet and has had to resign his throne in order to be a Starfleet officer. And in a somewhat more racy quirk on Star Trek lore, we find out that Phillips' mum has been trying to get him to lose his virginity because if that happens, he suddenly becomes the king of Hesperia. And he just wants to stay in Starfleet and doesn't want to have to be the king of his home planet. It was fun to see the Hesperian ship and the ye oldie medieval kind of tone and flavour that this race has. I think we saw quite a few races back in the original series where there was a distinct kind of, ye oldie castle and kind of medieval kind of themed races and so forth. I think they must have had a lot of old props and costumes at the production facility back in those days where they just kind of reused medieval themed costumes for kind of Star Trek races. So it was kind of fun to see a whole race being based around this kind of mythology. And poor old Mariner and Boimler, who get crash landed on this planet whilst trying to fend off attempts from Agamus, the supercomputer, to take over everything. All the replicator is producing is black licorice, and even when they go on a scouting expedition to find water, they find fruit that just tastes like black licorice. So I thought that was quite funny. The moment in this episode when the explosion occurred and the Queen got killed and Rutherford got killed, it was generally kind of a wow, surprise kind of moment. It's like, oh my God, like Rutherford's dead? Like what's going on here? Like I thought, how is this going to play out? I thought, is this going to be one of these kind of moments where he's just back again next week, much like our security chief Shax, just suddenly without any kind of explanation was alive again the following season? Is like, oh, are they killing off Rutherford? And also quite heartfelt that Tendy was so shaken up by the whole event. Back with Mariner and Boimler on the crash-landed planet, there's a moment in this which I thought almost seemed like it was more of a homage to a Star Wars moment than a Star Trek moment, where sliding down the sand dune in the ship graveyard on the desert planet, which seemed very much like Jakku from the Force Awakens, and then they're sliding down on things to get to the ship, which is exactly what I think Rey did at one point in The Force Awakens. So this sort of moment in this episode yeah, felt more like a Star Wars homage than a Star Trek homage. I gotta say, the stuff in this episode with Phillips being scammed into losing his virginity and the two Hyperion squires in his quarters, this is a bit racy for Star Trek. It was definitely kind of pushing the boundaries, I think, a little bit, maybe further than we would come to expect from Star Trek. I think in more recent years, we've sort of pushed the boundaries a little bit more in the sort of level of violence with Star Trek, but they never really kind of delved too deeply into a little bit more adult level sex-related content. So this maybe felt like it was kind of pushing the boundaries just a little bit more than usual. Now, when Agamus finally got plugged into the wrecked ship's computer and broadcasted his desires to take over the galaxy with his fleet of murder drones, it was fun to see that the drones that he used were exactly the same drones that we saw in the first season Next Generation episode Arsenal of Freedom, where we got to see Data and the other away team members or whatever fight increasingly more difficult drones on this jungle planet. So it was sort of fun to say, it's the same drone from that first season Next Gen episode. But in the end, at least Phillips remained pure, and he gets to resume his duties on board the Cerritos as chief engineer, and doesn't have to be king after all, which is a relief. I love the last scene when Boimler and Mariner drop off the evil supercomputer Agamus to the Federation Daystrom Institute, and they've got like an entire warehouse full of these sentient AIs that are trying to take over the galaxy, and they're all kind of bickering and arguing and fighting between each other as to who's the most powerful and who's going to take over the universe first. That was kind of funny. I thought that was a really good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was definitely a few laugh out loud moments, and it was an interesting story. We're certainly getting to the pointy end of this season. Only 3 episodes of this season of Lower Decks left, and they're supposed to be big bangers. I've heard Mike McMahon interviewed and said definitely the last few episodes of the season are much bigger, somewhat more theatrical scale in their stories. So I'll be certainly looking forward to them. So what did you guys think of this episode 7, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Did you enjoy the story of Boimler and Mariner and the supercomputer Agamus, voiced by Jeffrey Combs storyline? Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy Jeffrey Combs' return to the Star Trek franchise? And did you enjoy the other story with Phillips trying to have his virginity lost for him so he can become king of Hesperia? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, guys, please don't forget to leave a super thanks if you're able to. It really helps the channel out. And always like and comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Or check out my merchandise in the merch store, where you can pick up some cool t-shirts. Help support the channel as well. Much appreciated. And I'll catch you guys very soon for my next review. See you then.